Alright, so today we're going to do a still life using collage. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with our background on a piece of paper. So to do our background, we're going to begin by dividing the background into a table and a wall. So we're going to draw a line that's about 1/3 of the way up from the bottom. So if you divide your paper into thirds, that would be about right here. We're going to draw a line that goes all the way across to show where our table meets our wall. And if it's not perfectly straight, that's okay. Alright? Everything above this line is the wall and everything below is the table. So our next step is create a design for your wall. You might have a window, might have picture frames, might have wallpaper patterns. It's up to you. Just start creating something for your wall. So like I'm putting a window here with a little tree outside. Keeping it nice and simple. And then maybe I have a wall pattern. So maybe I have bricks. I really like bricks. I think they make a nice pattern. Fairly easy to do. You can do whatever pattern you want. You can look up patterns online. Or I will also be including my example page from class that you guys should already remember. Alright? Alright, our next step is to create our shapes for our bowl and our fruits. Notice that I have my background paper here and I'm actually starting my fruits and my bowl on a separate sheet of paper, that way I can cut them out. So to do our bowl, there's lots of different shapes you can use and there's some examples in the PowerPoint. I'm just going to create a simple one for you guys to see. We're going to start off with drawing an oval and I would make it nice and big. Take up a good amount of space on your page because remember you want your fruits to be able to fit in here. And then on the bottom we're going to create a curve like a letter U. And there's a nice simple bowl for your fruit. Alright, so for the fruit you have a couple different things you can create. You can look up more online if you would like to, like Google. Google Images is great for looking up pictures. And you can do oranges, which an orange would just be a simple circle. Remember, make them nice and big. You can do pears. Pears are kind of funny shape. They've got sort of this little top like the letter N, and then they get kind of rounded out. So they go really big like an upside down heart. And then they have the little thing on top. Alright. For apples, it's going to be sort of like a really chubby heart with a really soft bottom part. So we're going to start with our heart. And we're going to have a little, instead of going pointy, we're going to come up, like the letter C. And then backwards to make our apple. And give it a little leaf maybe. Alright, so I'm just going to do the orange with you guys. And then I'm going to speed through the rest. That way you guys can see what it means to create value on these forms. So always, before you ever start, you want to decide which way each fruit is laying. And then you're going to figure out which way the light is pointing. So if my light is pointing this way on my bowl, where it's coming from the upper left-hand corner, all these areas up here are going to be light, and everything down at the bottom this side is going to be in the dark. Alright? So maybe my orange is facing the same way. Maybe I'm actually going to have, let's have all of our stuff standing up for now. That way it's nice and easy to see. You can always try having stuff on the side. And these arrows are going to show you where your light's coming from, alright? So starting with the orange, we're going to take our orange color. If you don't want your orange to be orange, that's okay. But usually they're orange. And we're going to start over by the side where the arrow is pointing. And we're going to press super softly. Notice how it's more of a peach color right now instead of an orange. What I would do, instead of just coloring in the area that's going to be light, what I would do is color the entire orange. Pressing very softly to get that really light color, that really in the light color. Because remember, even if the orange is in light, it's not white. Even on the spots where the light is shining. It's still orange, just a very light orange. Alright? Our next step is we're going to come and we're going to think about there being a circle here. because usually there's reflected light coming from where the light hits directly on the orange, and then it starts getting slightly more pure or darker in color. We're going to come from here, from the middle, and we're going to start working our way down, pressing harder. Making sure our color blends. We don't want it to look like it's white and then medium and then dark. We want it to look like it's gradually fading as you go towards the bottom of your fruit. And if you've really got the handle on this, you can do this all at once, where you go pressing light and then slowly pressing harder as you go towards the bottom. And we're not going to add a shadow underneath right now because we're actually going to cut this out. Alright, notice how it's going from light to a very pure orangey color. And if you're doing colored pencils, I would make sure you're not burnishing. Burnishing is where you press so hard, here's an example, that you can't see any white through the papers. If you do this, you can't blend the colors, and you're going to need to blend the colors. Alright, so here's where we're going to start blending. Obviously, our orange right now has no shadow on it. It's not in shadow, so that's what our black is going to be for. You can also use a complementary color like blue to make this orange more dull on the bottom, where it's going to be in shadow. But I like to stick with black because it's the most reliable for every color. And what you're going to do is you're not going to press very hard, because remember, our black is a very strong, powerful color. It's going to overpower any other color it goes on top of very quickly. And you're just going to press lightly and start creating a sort of C-like shape at the bottom where it's furthest away from the light, to kind of make it look like it's in the round, to start creating that form. If you need help with this, you can always take a ball or an orange, if you have one, and then stick it underneath the light and see how the light changes as it goes from light to dark. Light where the light is, and then dark where the shadow is falling. And we'll get into reflected light on the bottom later, but right now we're not going to worry about that. Notice how I'm going pretty high and I'm pressing super lightly so it's not dark, and then pressing harder as I get towards the bottom to create that real shadow. Right? And that's pretty much the basics for creating an orange form. Right? After you've finished coloring your background, which you've probably noticed that I've done, and cutting out each of your fruits, is, if you have a bowl like mine, what I'll do is, where it's open, there should be a black line that you drew, and we'll follow along with that line. The reason we do this is because we want it to look like our fruits are inside our bowl, not floating on top of it or outside of it. We don't have to cut this all the way off, but we want to get most of the way across. That way we can stick our fruits inside, alright? So now we're just going to take our fruits, make sure they're all facing with the light the same way as the bowl, and arrange them inside of our bowl. Alright? One of the important things to have is make sure there's a little bit of overlap, and make sure your fruits aren't sticking out in a weird way outside your bowl. Alright, and then once you've got that, you can just glue it all down. Alright, once you've got your fruit bowl glued down, our last step is to create the shadow of the bowl falling on the table, because if you look at it right now, it kind of looks like your bowl is floating above the table instead of sitting on it. So first thing we're going to consider is we are going to remember which way our light is pointing. Right now it's pointing from the upper left corner, which is why the light is on top of all of our fruits and bowl, which means the shadow is going to fall down here and it's going to go this way. So our shadow is going to be very dark underneath our bowl, because that is where there is no light. So the light can't reach directly underneath the bowl. And as it moves away, it should follow the same shape as the bowl. It's going to slowly get lighter to create a shadow of where your bowl is sitting. since our bowl is round, our shadow should be fairly round, ovalish shape too. Making sure your shadow fades as it goes away from your bowl, otherwise it's going to look really odd if you have a really, really solid line on the outside edge of your shadow.